Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Whitey and Wills Sports Show. It is Monday, January 17th, and we're recording. We thought we were going to have a guest this week. A little bit of illness got in the way of that, so we're going to
big C word may be a factor with this.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
We're going to push that one back a week, and we know people like to see guests. I've gotten some feedback. People really like the where are they now type of stuff that we have done. So you're going to like the guest that we have coming up, but we're going to have to push that back a week, and that's okay because we've got plenty of basketball to talk about. The National Trail Conference boys pairings came out this week. Lots of tournaments going on. The T-Town girls are in the Highland tournament. The Effingham boys are going to be in the Salem Invitational this week. The Ntc Girls Tournament is getting ready. As we record here about 9:30 Monday morning, the Ntc Girls Tournament is getting ready to start. So there's no shortage of basketball to talk about. So we'll just do that. Mike and I will break it down. And it was busy week of basketball this past week. Some interesting games. I saw a lot. My daughter and I were at a gym 4 nights this week, and then we watched a game on YouTube yesterday. So we've been staying busy. And I know, Mike, you worked that Diederik Altamont game Friday night, which was a North Clay Altamont game Friday night, which was an interesting result. So I don't know, where do we want to start?
Our guest we had lined up would be a good guest. Will be a good guest. And it is kind of a where are they now? And it also will tease them. We're tying again to a Division I basketball program. So
yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good questions answered about how the inner workings of a Division I team take place. I honestly didn't know that this position on a college basketball staff. I'm not sure I had heard of it, a few years ago. But
they go by. It's commonly known as a dobo. So we actually have 2 dobos. Division I dobos who have ties to Effingham, and our hope is to eventually get the other one on as well. But yeah, a little bit of illness set in, and just didn't feel like he could be he could produce to the quality of our show with how bad he was feeling. So he's taking a powder for a week, and we'll have him on. I told him he's on the PUP list, so he'll be back next week, and looking forward to it. It will be a very good interview, podcast, discussion, and I can bring back some interesting pictures of this Dobo as well. So it'll be good.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some games last week. I don't know. I'll just randomly pick something to start with. We talked a lot about the Effingham boys last week, because they had a really inspiring win against Mount Zion. They went up to their place and got a big win. And then they turned around this past week, and Tuesday night they went to Newton and just dominated 64-36, which I'm not going to say I didn't think Effingham could win that game. I think Effingham can win about any game, and it's just a matter of whether it comes together or not. But that score really caught me off guard, just because we know Newton's a really good team, and nobody has really beaten them that way. And I think that even kind of includes when they've met some pretty stiff competition toward the end of the Christmas tournament.
And if we had our crystal ball and we could have been going on social media proclaiming we will take any wagers, Newton plus 25 points, Whitey, we would be doing this podcast from an exotic location.
Yeah.
And I do know Newton was missing their big kid inside. He did not play. And I do know that 2 or 3 other starters possibly were not even at school the next day. So it's kind of a theme you and I discussed pre-show, and this may be a perfect segue to talk about that a little bit, is when you see results of games I think because you don't see box scores anymore, you don't know who's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And you look back at a lot of games. Oh, well, this team got beat. This team beat this team. Really? Well, who was there? For example, Normal has one loss. Normal High School has one loss. I think they're ranked 4th or 5th in the state right now. And Champaign Centennial beat them, who St. Anthony beat, who Pleasant Plains should have beaten. But yet they beat, and you don't know who was there, who was Normal missing. Were they missing some of their best kids? Were they playing and very under the weather? You don't, and there's a lot of head scratchers. Sisney beating Mount Carmel here recently. Wow, that was a big upset. Well, who did Mount Carmel have? North Clay, I kind of scratched my head all season. I know they were playing a tough schedule, but I thought, man, they're more athletic than that. Well, I did the game with Matt and found out that this Friday was the first time they've had every kid available. Okay. Not 100%, at least available this season. So, yeah, it's a strange thing. And Effingham's very capable, but again, in this strange world, they turn around and go to Taylorville and get beat.
Yep, they had lost in double overtime to Taylorville earlier this year. And I saw that game, broadcast that game. And Effingham certainly had their chances to win that ball game. But Taylorville also would tell you that they probably could have gotten it over with before 2 overtimes also. And it was another close game, a low scoring game. I'm looking now. It was, I'm scrolling up, and it was 36-34. So
that was at Taylorville this week, right?
And Taylorville was coming off of not being able to play. They were in another week-long shutdown. So
that was their second break. And they had 1 or 2 in football too. So
yep, their girls team had to do the same thing. So it's just Taylorville's it's affected them more than most schools, and it really feels like the Apollo. It really feels like the Apollo conference
publicly affected them more than most schools.
Right. Yeah.
I think some schools are affected, but maybe kids aren't getting tested.
Yeah. I mean, in any way that we can tell, at least, it just seems like I've been trying to keep track of the Ntc, the Apollo, the LIC, and the Apollo has by far had more postponements and cancellations. It just I'm not here to speculate on any of that, but that is the fact that they get more games affected by this than anybody else. But Taylorville, it's a game between the two teams that are at the bottom 2 spots in the Apollo Conference boys standings right now. But it's a big win for them, because 2 wins over Effingham, it just assures them that it gives them a better chance of not finishing last. And I think that's a psychological boost, if nothing else. In a year where they have not gotten to play regularly, they probably just feel like they're a better team than what their record shows anyway. So you talk about not seeing box scores anymore. That's one thing I do appreciate about what Millie does on the 97.9 website. She does put those box scores, and you can always tell. I've been trying to keep track of that too. What people's scoring averages are, and usually, and you can usually tell who played and who didn't, right? Like, if they're not there, then that
they're not the box score. They're probably, especially if it's a key player. It may not be a team's number 1 option, but sometimes losing option 2 or 3, in essence, in my opinion, is more.
Yeah,
you're losing more than number 1, because maybe number 1, all they do is score, but 2 or 3 is a pretty good guarder and a pretty good distributor of the ball. And
absolutely, that's absolutely
that kicks out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at scoring averages and you see a team where you got player 1 scores 17 points a game, player 2 scores 12 points a game, player 3 scores 7.5 points a game, and they lose player 3, and you're like, well, they ought to be okay. They're not, and who knows, that could be their point guard, that could be the person that runs the show, that calls out
the person that is their best defender, that has to spend so much energy
Well, and
guarding the opposing team's number one, they don't get a chance to score a lot.
Well, and I mean, obviously ball movement is important to scoring. And if you've got a person out there that just isn't as certain of themselves, moving the ball within the offense, well, then the open looks are just not going to be there the same way for those top two options.
And Whitey, one of the things we've had mentioned before is scoring's down this year, blah, blah, blah. You hit the nail on the head right there. Ball movement is another reason why scoring is down, because to be honest, if it wasn't for so many teams running the little weave on offense on top, other than doing that, the whole game has become very stagnant. And who's going to get the open three, or who's going to throw up garbage going to the basket?
Yeah, and
that's my mini soapbox there.
Well, even then, you see teams that probably ought to be in kill clock mode, with an 8-10 point lead, 4 minutes to go. And they should be doing that weave up, 30 feet away from the basket, like you're talking about, just trying to run some time off. And sometimes you see teams that aren't really capable of doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't want to get too much. I don't want to get into too much of get off my lawn territory, But
that's my territory.
Yeah, I always try to keep a pretty open mind about this stuff. But I do think that those are important skills to have, and they'll serve you well in a big situation somewhere down the road. I mean, not being able to do that in a non-conference game, in December is one thing, but you might get into late February and be trying to salt away a sectional game, and you're forced to do things you wouldn't normally do because that's a weakness for your team. Well, that's a problem.
I may know a coach, Whitey, that in a sectional final decided really to try to do that once, and it didn't end well.
Well, there's a certain faction of basketball fan that will tell you that's why IHSA needs to get this shot clock going as soon as possible, because that's not basketball anyway.
No, it's a terrible idea.
Well,
because here's your biggest thing, because it's kind of funny. I had a conversation with an athletic director who over Christmas who was shocked that a superintendent thought this was going to be a good idea. And the conversation was, okay, so we pay our bench personnel $25 a game to work at the table. So now you've added $25. Okay, there's a JV varsity. Okay, girls, now fresh soft. Okay, and you're always screaming about spending money. So here you've just added maybe $1,000 when you say you don't have money for us. And the biggest problem is, watch a college basketball game. How many times do they go to the replay on whether a clock was reset? And you're telling me that a volunteer or a person for $25, where it's hard to get competent people to run the clock, to keep the book. Usually, I mean, one of those people is a parent of a player who does a very good job, okay? But now you're going to find another person to sit there who's going to do this. No, it's a horrible idea, because you don't have the luxury of going to replay in a high school game. I mean, if Neoga and Altamont are squaring off and and the shot clock doesn't reset, do you think Coach Snow and Coach Niebuhr are going to be happy if it becomes a factor in a game inside the last 2 minutes? No, not going to be happy at all.
And I mean, the logistics of it are obviously the biggest problem. Like the biggest hurdle in having it happen and be competently done. Like, yeah, logistically a big problem, but that's also just, I mean, I have seen some lopsided scores this year that I'm not accustomed to seeing in varsity basketball to begin with. You think those are bad. Like, you wait till teams have, I mean, it's probably going to be like, I don't know what the number is, 35 or 40 seconds, something like that. Not going to be a 24-second shot clock like in the NBA or anything like that, but it's still going to create so many more embarrassing situations for smaller schools that have programs, and it's good that they have programs, but they just struggle, for whatever reason. And the problem with that is that high school programs that struggle, if they struggle for an extended period of time, then kids stop going out, and then all of a sudden they're co-oping with somebody, or they just cease to exist. It's going to do is smaller schools are going to, for the logistical reasons and for the competitive reasons, it's going to hurt them the most. I feel like that's the way it's going to shake out. And people think that they look at the reasons why they think it's good, but they kind of ignore those other aspects of it and what that is going to do, or what that's going to mean for programs that are already not, they already are scraping the barrel just to try and keep, do the things they need to do now.
Right. And a couple of things, Whitey. Number one, you now have to install these clocks generally on a backboard, correct?
I mean, it needs to be somewhere where it can be seen, but that's usually
okay. So let's say you put them on a lot of places, you'll see them on the backboard. Thinking here in Central Illinois, do you think that somehow during a game of town ball or kickball or whatever, maybe becomes a target to a PE class? Just thinking outside the box a little bit. Secondly, in my opinion, and I'm a person when I coached who used a shot clock in practice because we wanted to be so up tempo and be able to get into what we were doing quickly. We practiced with it. I love the whole idea as a coach doing it, but in my opinion, if you make that a rule, all you're doing is forcing bad shots to be taken quicker. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's nobody around here who's holding the ball extended periods of time.
No, I mean, I've heard stories from years ago about, certain coaches that's the way they did things. And that was their strategy. Like we don't have the athletes, we don't have the skill, but what we can do is run offense for a minute and a half at a time and shorten the game to the point where we have a chance to make a few plays late and win it.
Whitey, I personally saw a team stand shoulder to shoulder in front of their bench and hand the ball back and forth like fire water buckets.
Yeah. I mean, okay, that's not in the spirit of competition either.
Well, because they wanted to keep the score down,
but running actual offense and passing it, that's a skill too. And if you can do that, that's fine,
Right.
I remember at the Charleston Holiday Tournament one year, it was only in Edwardsville, and Edwardsville didn't like that Olney was playing. They had Keem Toman playing at that time, big kid in the middle, and they were playing zone. They were playing a 2-3 zone and just leaving Toman in the middle of the floor. And Edwardsville didn't want to deal with that, and so they just they basically brought the ball across midcourt and then stood there with it until Olney came out and played man to man, and they stood there like that for what felt like an eternity. And sure, having a shot clock would eliminate things like that, but that's a one-off situation. That's not a problem that you need to. That's not the kind of thing that you need to make sweeping statewide rule changes to. And also, that was like 15 years ago. So, you don't hear about it happening so frequently.
Right. It is. When it happens, it's an anomaly. There was a shootout in the Chicagoland area this week. Maybe. I want to say Peoria, Notre Dame, but there's another Notre Dame in the Chicagoland area as well. But somebody held the ball for 3 minutes to end the half. That's fine. If they want to do that and it really bothers you, go chase them and take them out of it. I had a team once that I knew was going to stall, and we went out and chased and turned them over 5 or 6 times while they're holding the ball and cost them the ball game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, so what's next? Is it like sometimes in your 3rd and 4th grade travel ball, hey, you can't pick up in the back court? or you can only pick up in the back court if you're up by
Yeah.
8 or less. You know, it will only lead to other things. Trust me.
I just think high school players, some high school players are skilled enough to play well with the shot clock. Most high school players just don't need to deal with that, and the high school game doesn't need that to be good and enjoyable. I just feel like you're at the end of the day, you might feel like you're the idea is to improve the quality of play, but what you're going to, I think, inadvertently do is
if logistically it can be done with the personnel, with the ways to correct errors when they happen. Okay, you look at official 3-man crews around here today. Now you throw in the fact we're having an official shortage. You've got more people working longer. You have more people maybe doing bigger varsity games than should be, you know.
sometimes.
But that's the thing. If all those logistics things were addressed and you had no problem with them, okay, I'll support it 100%. You know, a school that's struggling financially, the IHSAs or the fan fund from the people screaming for it, hey, throw some money in a hat so they can install the equipment. You know, yeah, they can have it, but now maybe they're not going to get new balls this year.
Yeah.
Let's take care. If the logistics were taken care of, you had competent people running it, I'm okay with it. That's the problem.
See, I've taken it a step further. I think even if you could make it all happen seamlessly, I'm still not necessarily in favor of it because of some of the other things that I outlined. But you don't even have to get that far down the conversation to understand why it's to me it's a pretty iffy, if not just unrealistic idea. If people wanted to have it in like tournaments and stuff like that, like I might be okay. I think that would be fine. Like if you wanted to say, hey, come to our Christmas tournament. It's going to be a college style ball. You're going to play with a shot clock. You know, that could be interesting, but I don't need it. I don't need it to find my South Central Neoga game interesting. Okay. Like there's plenty of reasons to enjoy that game, no matter how good you personally think the basketball is. Like there's plenty of enjoyable aspects to that game without trying to tweak the gameplay to make it fit whatever your idea of good basketball is.
And why did you hit the nail on the head? The 3-point line. The year before it became a rule, the Charleston Holiday Tournament experimented. Of course, they had it in college, so the line was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So they said during the Charleston Holiday Tournament, we are going to, the 3-point shot will be a factor. It is a rule now. Mm-hmm. We're going to experiment with it. Kids thought it was awesome. And that's where the whole problem, everybody started looking at the floor before they would shoot. And, you know, yeah, some shots were taken from that line. Obviously, no one had it in their offense the way they do now, but it's that might be a decent approach to say, hey, you know, as a Christmas tournament, if you have the wherewithal and everybody's on board, we're going to experiment with it. But man, you got to get all your officials on board. You got to get all your teams on board. Yeah, I think that would be very, very delicate situation.
Well, IHSA is putting their feelers out. I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near that being a thing, but it's definitely a conversation that's gaining momentum. I mean, they're asking the schools what they think about it, and we'll see where that goes. I just feel like that's going to be a line between schools of a certain size, and that's where it's going to fall. Like bigger schools will probably think that's great, you know, but they typically can make it happen. They have the players, they have the means. I think that's
well, here's another thing people won't consider, and I'll use 3 schools in particular: St. Anthony, Effingham, and Teutopolis. All 3 schools would have to add on to their scores bench. Mm-hmm. They don't have room. There's no room for another person to sit there. Mm-hmm. Okay, because now you've all have your foul panel where you keep track of the individual points and fouls. okay, which is a separate person from the person keeping the clock, and then the person keeping the official book, and then the visiting scores book. There's no room. So now you're going to have to go out and add on to that table. You know, Effingham has the biggest table, but now you also got a spot taken up by the person running the video board.
Yeah.
So it's a logistics issue.
You're talking to a person who always wished that there was one more space on there for a newspaper guy to sit so that he could be right.
I understand.
Right in the middle. I always thought that'd be a good place to sit because you could kind of hear what the coaches are saying, and you wouldn't necessarily print that, but you could hear what the coaches are saying to their teams, what they're saying to the officials, have a better idea of like who's in foul trouble and stuff like that. If you're having trouble, if you're keeping a book and you might be writing something down and miss something. Like I always thought that would have been a great place to sit, but never worked out. Most of the time, just had to be happy if I could get in the gym and not have to pay my admission. So, all right, hey, this was a good conversation, Mike. We got off.
We got a major segue there, didn't we?
Got off on a tangent, but that's interesting, I think, and I think there's going to be people who disagree with us. I'd be interested to hear what they have to say about it. In fact, we should when we post this on Facebook, we should open the question up and let people hash it out. That might be a good way to generate.
Sure. No, I agree 100%. It's just,
I'm not going to agree with them unless they.
It's right. I just feel like it's just with rosy colored glasses on. Sure, let's try it. But when you really sit down and look at it, there's so many parts of it, I think, that can become a problem. I really.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to some of the things that happened this week. We got through Effingham's boys. Again, I don't want to belabor the point too much. They're at the bottom of the standings. Lincoln is winning that conference, and they haven't lost a conference game yet. Nobody else is sitting with fewer than 2 losses. Charleston's at 5-2, and then you've got Mount Zion and Mattoon and Muhammad all in the middle of that too. That's that's one of those where the Hearts are just going to have to see what they could do about getting it together and being able to maybe be a spoiler come regional time. And they really could. They could be a very
they guard. Yeah, and that's one of their biggest things. They guard. It's just they have some nights they struggle scoring, and if they have a night where they're putting the ball in the hole like they did at Newton, shot it well, yeah.
And I want to point out, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I was scanning the box scores on the news radio station website a little bit, and last week's Attaboy winner, Braden Powell's, seems like he had another pretty good week for the Hearts, so that's good. They need him, and so good to see. Good to see.
We may have inspired him, Whitey.
Do you think he even knows yet that he got
it? I haven't. I was busy all last week. I didn't get a chance to get out to their practice to deliver his prize. So, and I may have to use a stand-in to deliver our prize this week too.
Just think how good he's going to. Think how well he's going to play once he knows. I mean,
exactly. Oh yeah.
We should probably alert the Associated Press. Start getting him in Mr. Basketball conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stick with Effingham for a minute with the girls now. I'm just looking to see they actually they had kind of a slow week because no, they didn't. They picked up a game with Neoga Monday night. See, they were supposed to play Taylorville Tuesday, and that one got banged because Taylorville was, again, having their COVID issues. That one's going to happen a week from today, actually, now. But they went to Neoga, picked up a game there because Neoga had lost a game as well because of COVID. And they beat Neoga by 12. That was a really good game. That was one of the ones I went to. And Effingham played well. They had a lot of kids contribute. Meredith Schaefer hit some daggers for three-pointers just at key times for them. When Neoga hung tough, it was really, I thought, a well-played game by both teams. But and then really Effingham went to Paris. They played Paris Thursday night and lost by 11, 55-44. But Paris is good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they're a good team.
I don't think there's any shame in losing to that Paris team by 11 points. That probably speaks pretty well for the Hearts. They play in the Vandalia tournament this week too. Remember, Effingham used to have their midwinter girls tournament. Now that basically has kind of shifted scenes to Vandalia, and Effingham is playing in it. But Effingham's girls and boys are both playing in tournaments this week because Effingham's girls are playing in that round robin in Vandalia this week, and the boys are over at the Salem Invitational, which is always a tough field. Doesn't have as many local teams in it as we're used to, because it seemed like there always used to be 2 or 3 Apollo teams. And then didn't T-Town get in it for a little? Did T-Town get in it for a little while or not? I don't remember. Maybe they didn't. But Effingham's the only local team now that is.
Are both Centralia and Mount Vernon still in the tournament? I looked briefly at the pairings.
I'm gonna.
Okay, don't worry about it.
I'm gonna look it up real quick. I can tell you this much: Effingham plays. They play. Looking this now, they play Madison Thursday night, which seems to me like Madison. Okay, so Madison was supposed to play the T-Town boys this past weekend and couldn't do it because, and the way Greg was explaining it on the radio was that Madison School District went fully remote. Okay. And so their rule was, well, if you're not in the classroom, then you're not doing extracurriculars, which I can kind of see both sides of that argument. Like you say, if our circumstances aren't good enough for the kids to be in the classroom, then how can we turn around and say that it's good enough for them to be on the basketball floor? But also, if none of the kids on the basketball team are, having problems, then I guess they're saying, why do we not get to do our thing, even though we're, by the rules of the state and
that's your trouble with black and white rules on this. It's just like Whitey, it's the school district that says, if we're weathered out, we have no activities. And I've seen at 6 o'clock when they call off school because you've had ice or you've had, let's say it's ice.
Sure.
And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 45 frickin' degrees outside and everything's been canceled because they have a rule. You can't paint yourself in the corner, I don't think, sometimes, and make a black and white decision. I mean, it's just sometimes it's, you have competent administrators make a decision. And here's my question with Madison. Are they still in the remote now tomorrow?
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, that's who Effingham's supposed to play Thursday night at 6:30. I mean, I guess we'll find out I don't know if they have somebody to stand in if Madison can't do it, what they will. I mean, I don't know what they'll do.
I'll just say, as an athletic director once, I had a situation where Madison didn't want to travel on a Saturday because roads were bad on a Friday and they were fine following day. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
So let's just assume Effingham does play Madison. They'd turn around and play a semifinal Friday if they were to win that. The way the Salem tournament works, if you win your semifinal, then you play the next day, or if you win your opening round game, you play a semifinal either the next day or 2 days later, and then everything else is finished on Saturday. Well, if Effingham loses on Thursday, then they would potentially play twice on Saturday. That would be to get in the consolation championship. So we'll see. The Salem tournament's kind of always been a little different in how they
wonky.
Yeah, but this is the 70th year.
It's a great tournament. I've seen some great games.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the championship game of that thing, always the gym there, they fill it up. I mean, they get schools involved that travel well and want to beat each other. A
lot of times you've had it as a Mount Vernon Centralia game in the past. They've squared off several times.
Centralia is not in it, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Champaign Central, East St. Louis, Carbondale, Salem, Effingham, Madison, Mount Vernon, and Thornton Fractional North. So
I'm picking East St. Louis. That's my pick.
Okay. I don't know anything about it. I know that in a good year, you're a year where Effingham's got a really good record, winning the Salem tournament would still be a really tall task.
Oh yeah, it'd be a major feather in your cap.
But it's a fun venue to go call a game. I like to go down there. The atmosphere is good. The tournament's well run. The hospitality room is pretty solid. Maybe not quite up to Effingham to Topless Christmas classic standards, but really that's God tier stuff right there. You can't really compare anything else to it. It's like comparing anybody else to Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really fair. So anyway, I think that's the Apollo boys, the Apollo girls. Again, Effingham's girls at Vandalia. They play twice today. They play Centralia and Vandalia. Then they play Greenville and Muscuda later in the week. That's a round robin deal. So, and it ends on Friday. Let's talk Ntc girls real quick, and then we'll shift focus to the Ntc boys, how they did, and then the tournament coming up next week. We could talk about the pairings. And then we can, or do you want to get into the T-Town boys and girls? We could get into that real quick too.
Yeah, let's sandwich them in the middle. Let's do that.
Okay, let's do that. T-Town's boys, they had a good week. They beat St. Joe's Ogden 54-38 Tuesday night, and then they beat Wayne City 91-53. I don't 91 points. I didn't listen to the broadcast, admittedly, but that's a lot. That's a lot.
Now, here's your head scratcher. Wayne City beat Sisney.
Yeah. I looked at Wayne City's, I found their Max Preps page and just thought, because I was just kind of curious, like, what kind of matchup is this going to be? Is this just sort of like, well, we wanted to get a game and we'll play somebody, and maybe this team's not great, but it's better than not having a game. And
maybe Wayne City's coach is like, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to go to a hostile environment, play a good team that can make us better and prepare us for the postseason. There's a thought.
Yeah. And I'm obviously, whatever the intentions were, they did that. They accomplished that. I'm sure I didn't look at what Wayne City had done to this point and say, there's a team that T-Town's going to beat by 38,
right.
But T-Town could be really good, even with the guys that they've, even with what they've had situations where they haven't been at full strength. They have lost a starter, due to injury this year. That's not going to be coming back. But there's nothing about them that says this isn't a team that's going to be dangerous come postseason time. And
no, I saw the second half of the St. Joe game. I had a commitment, and by the time I got there, it may have even been in the third quarter, I think, to be honest, middle of the third quarter. Tyler Pence, much discussed. He's probably got 12 to 15 offers from D1 schools. And I know some people saw him play and, he's not. No, when these college coaches see these kids, they're seeing them in an AAU setting. St. Joe was missing 2 starters that game. I happened to, on my way home after the game, reached out to their superintendent, Brian Brooks, whose former coach took them to state and won state with them. And they had 2 kids at home. Does that make a difference in the game? I don't know. I thought T-Town played really, really well, what I saw especially. I was going into the game thinking, man, they're really going to miss Kate Altoff because that's who would have been guarding Mr. Pence. Well, Mitch Altoff was guarding him while I was there, and the whole time I was there, he did a wonderful job. I mean, it was no help responsibility, which you got to have on a kid like that. And he did a good job. The Pence kid's the real deal. There was just, I saw when T-Town pulled away in the middle of the fourth quarter, it was kind of a combination of their guards making a couple bad decisions on some passes. And then Brendan Nieberge, for the first time, I felt like what I've seen this year. I haven't seen every game, but there was a spell of about a minute and a half, 2 minutes where he just said, this is my game, and did some things on the offensive end of the floor. just, he opened it up and did some really nice things. And it was good to see. It was good to see him be a little more aggressive. I think sometimes Brendan's personality, and he's, he doesn't want to, oh, look, that kid's a ball hog, or he's doing this or that, which, Brendan's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. But he just kind of took control of just a little spurt in the game. And then that coincided, he got a steal on the defensive end just because the Pence kid went back door, and their guards, you could tell they weren't their regular guard. Oh, he's going to be wide open, and just threw a little bounce pass. Well, the defensive rotation, threw a little bounce pass right to Brendan Nieberg. And again, it was just a little spark, but I was very impressed how he did that little minute and a half.
So you talk about missing Caden Altoff's defense, and I just want to get back to that for a minute, because you mean to tell me that T-Town has more than one kid with athleticism and long arms that can play good man-to-man defense? That's just crazy talk.
When I would talk about how T-Town was going to be this year, I would tell people they have these two Altoff kids that can just guard the heck out of it. And Caden had gotten, in my point, had really developed offensively. Probably he was more offensive minded than Mitch is, but they can both guard, and Mitch just did a good job. He really did. He guarded the Pence kid, and they've got some kids who can play. And in that game, then the Wayne City game, I didn't go over and watch it, but I guess talked to some people who were there and looked at the scores a little bit. And James Nieberg is becoming a little more aggressive on the offensive end. He took some shots, knocked down some open threes where beginning of the year he wouldn't take that open three.
No, he's been good at times. Like if the offense takes him toward the basket and creates open looks for him, he'll go to the basket and take that pass and make the layup. But putting up jumpers, creating his own shot, not necessarily a thing that I would have said that's part of his game. But it's part of his game. I just think he's been apprehensive in doing that. Yeah. And now, I saw a little bit of video yesterday. I saw Tyler had video from the game yesterday, and I saw him catch and shoot and knock down a couple threes. I saw him do it against St. Joe. Somebody penetrated, kicked it out. He didn't hesitate. And when he now gets the confidence where he can say, I can go to the rack and score because I can get up and elevate. Okay. Now I can pull up and take that 8 to 10 to 12 footer. Okay, you're going to I'm going to catch on the perimeter wide open. I feel confident to take it, because now when he's doing that, that opens up the stuff for Caleb. That opens up the Brendan Nieberg's. That opens up things now for Max Nieberg to, do some things now, stay within himself more than trying to do more. And I having a conversation with Mr. Britton, I said, don't look past these guys as the season goes on, because, their schedule and who they've played and who they continue to play. And losing at Warrensburg Latham, okay, in overtime, a kid hit a fadeaway three to send it in overtime. But, they've knocked off Monticello. They've knocked off St. Joe. Granted, St. Joe was shorthanded, but still, I think they're a work in progress, and I like where they're going, getting more people in the act scoring. Well, and just briefly getting back to James Nieberg, that's the beauty of the high school games. I think you can see that kind of growth from the beginning of a season to the end of the season happen the way you just don't see it at any other higher level of basketball. A guy get that much better from point A to point B, because that's just where they are in life. High school kids can, as athletes, can make so much progress in the span of 3 months, and that's a fun thing to watch.
And it's usually, Whitey, this 4 inches between their ears.
Yeah,
it really is. It's the confidence. It's kids getting confidence. And Coach Reeder just pumps those kids up. I've seen Chet in practice. I've seen him in the games. Will he get on a kid and chew on a kid? Sure he will. But he's building them. Back when I coached, you got to be as much a psychologist as you do an X and O's guy, or you've got an assistant on the bench who's a heck of a psychologist, because you have to do the good cop, bad cop thing and all of these things. But it's that's the thing with kids. Their confidence level. And here's the thing people don't realize. Dustin White had a horrible game. Well, Dustin White's girlfriend told him to go take a hike during lunch, and they broke up after a year. That's why Dustin White came out and looked like a zombie tonight. You don't think about those things.
That's actually a point that I was getting ready to make. Probably
your girlfriend broke up with you once?
Well, I didn't have to worry too much about that in high school, but no, you're right. That's what I wanted to say was high school kids. I mean, that's an emotional time in life, right? Like and so I would always hesitate as a person who watches these games or as a media member who covers these games to watch one game, no matter how much you've been paying attention to the scores, to go to one game and see a team play and be like, oh, I had it completely wrong about this team. My opinion of this team has completely changed because of this one game that I saw. Well, that's, that doesn't work at any level. First of all, that's an overly simplistic way to view any sporting competition at any level, but especially in high school. Yeah. I mean, there are hormones flying like 17 different directions in any given game. And you get a group of kids that are just off mentally for whatever reason that night. And yeah, you're going to get some weird results, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I watched the St. Anthony and Yoga girls play Thursday night, and I expected that to be a really, really good game. And St. Anthony just ran off and hit in the first quarter. Well, who knows? I don't know what was going on with the Yoga girls other than they weren't hitting shots, but I've seen them play enough to know that I thought that was going to be a tighter game than it was, and it just wasn't. And maybe they play again this week in the Ntc tournament, and it's a completely different ball game. But I'm not going to draw any I'm not going to draw any sweeping conclusions based on what I saw for 32 minutes that night, especially at the high school level.
Well, and there's so many factors that go into, and again, it is, and from firsthand experience, I've seen kids be zombies.
Mm-hmm. You also don't know what's going on at home with them either, right? Like that's
and then that's another factor. You don't at all. We had a crappy school lunch today. Was crappy. No one liked it, and and now the kids are starved, and then didn't get a chance to eat before the game. There's all kinds of factors.
Sure, and I think that's more likely to happen at the high school level than higher levels because they're very susceptible to their environments. You get kids into a college program or pros, a lot of stuff's being taken care of for them. But at the high school level, you never know who's had square meals at home, whose parents are fighting with each other, or who.
Yep, a lot of factors, and kids wear it on their sleeve. They really do. You'll see kids you'll see a kid come out and get in foul trouble immediately in a game. I've seen kids, not feel good and not want to be out there. No one knows they didn't feel good. Commit a couple dumb fouls and you say, "Hey, what's going on?" "Oh, Coach, I feel like I'm going to throw up." "Well, then tell me, and we'll put you at the end of the bench or in the locker room by a bucket, and I won't have you out there."
Well, that goes.
Well, I didn't want you to think no. Well, so you come out and commit 2 dumb fouls in the first 2 minutes of the game, so you have to set out.
But it's the
thing. It's that rapport you have with your kids, and there's, it's amazing the factors that go into kids thinking during a game.
Yeah, we could talk about this for hours, I think, and not cover everything, but something to keep in mind. If you're observing high school basketball games, don't let any one game make your mind up for you.
Don't assume based on one view.
Yep. T-Town's girls, they won their opener at Highland. They beat Collinsville on Saturday. And the Highland Girls Tournament, notoriously tough. I think T-Town's girls got a 5 seed in that thing, which there's 16 teams in it. It's a big bracketed tournament. I used to love paying attention to it because they got so many good schools, and T-Town was usually one of the better ones in it. I think this year
they have now. They play O'Fallon now.
Let's see. I know that they play either O'Fallon or Hillsborough.
And O'Fallon was the 4 seed, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll look into that real quick.
And I think I don't want to say this out of my ignorance, but most people know that level. I think T-Town girls have won this tournament one time. And I know Lori loves it because of the competition and what it does for them moving forward.
It is Hillsborough that they play, by the way.
Hillsborough, but O'Fallon was the 4 seed, correct?
Yeah, O'Fallon beat them 70-52. So yeah. It is O'Fallon. They'll play O'Fallon. I'm sorry, they play O'Fallon. Okay, got it backwards. Right. They play O'Fallon, but O'Fallon, 16-3 on the season. It looks like beat Hillsborough 70-52, and Hillsborough's girls have got a winning record. They're 13-7 according to their Max Preps page. So, it'll be a tall task. That is a game that the T-Town girls will play today. They play tonight, actually, at 8:30. That's the other thing. They play these games. They play them late. They play their last games late because they have to squeeze in so many games. They play them all in that one gym at Highland, which is a really nice gym. It's a big gym, but they really they squeeze them in. So there's some late start times. And then from there, it's hard to say. They would either play Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the results there. But you talk about T-Town having only won the thing, limited, very few times. That if they don't win it this week, that doesn't mean that they didn't play really good basketball. And
exactly right.
Lori's whole program is about playing as many good teams as you can, so that when you get into that super sectional that you play in more often than not, it seems like, you're ready for anything, and you have seen like 3 or 4 teams at least as good over the course of your season. I mean, that's the way she does things, and it works. It works for her program, especially. It works. So
if you can go into your postseason saying we won't see anyone quicker than X, we won't see anyone bigger than Y, we won't see anyone more physical than Z.
Yeah.
You're ready to play.
Your kids, I mean, that's the thing. You could tell your kids that. You're like, listen, I've seen the film, and this team is going to do what so-and-so did earlier this year. It's nothing you haven't seen. So you're ready for it. And it's a snowball effect for their program. They've been doing this for decades now. And so they get to the point where they are the team that the other team in the matchup they're like, oh man, we got to play T-Town. We are screwed. That's the T-Town wins a psychological battle with whoever they play in the postseason almost all the time because of who they are. It's
right, but that aura with all teams is every year gets less and less and less because you can see them on tape. It used to be, we've never seen X or Y, but it has. But you're right, it is. It's worth points. The name on the front of a jersey a lot of times is worth points. It really is.
So T-Town's boys. We know what the T-Town girls are doing this week. Their boys
go to Centralia, I believe.
And that's that's always a tough. Centralia is another gym it's a big old gym.
Well, it's a new gym, big new gym.
Pretty well. Okay,
I guess when I say new, it's
I didn't mean when I said old. I was not necessarily talking about the age, but yeah, it's a fairly new gym. I've been there to broadcast. It's actually kind of similar to Highlands in a lot of ways. It's got that balcony all the way around. Right. I believe when I worked at the Daily News, the way our photographer Eric Williams described it, the lighting in there, he said that you could land an airplane in there, both the size of it and how well lit it was. He said that you could drop a plane in there. So that one's always stuck with me. But that's a tough place to go play because Centralia is a program that has a lot of good history.
Yep.
They typically play a style of basketball that's you're gonna have to adjust to. Like I don't know anything about this year's Centralia team, but I do know that over the years they have liked to play a pretty patient style of basketball.
They get out and guard you, which I always equate when you're really going to guard, you want to get the ball and push and go. And Coach Bennett does a great job down there, and they're really good. They're ranked 12th or 13th in 3A, I think, maybe a little lower than that. They're in the excuse me, they're in the teens somewhere as a 3A school.
Yeah, that's
they're still the winningest high school basketball team in the nation.
Yep. 14-2 this year, according to their Max Preps page. And yeah, that's a Friday night game with the shoes. So that'll be a fun matchup to pay attention to. Like we said, I mean, just because the program speaks for itself, they've got the results, and that's T-Town's only boys game this week on the schedule, I believe. So that can shift our focus finally to we'll go Ntc girls and then Ntc boys. Like I said, I was at that Neoga St. Anthony game Thursday night in Neoga. St. Anthony, I'm guessing the seedings had already been done for the girls tournament by then, but St. Anthony's the 3 seed in the tournament this week. Neoga's the 2. CHBC is the number 1. They've only lost 1 game this year. But St. Anthony came out and had Neoga down 22-9 after a quarter. And Neoga outscored them the rest of the way, lost by 11. But St. Anthony looked good. I mean, they're 14-8 on the year. They're second in the NTC standings now behind CHBC. Riley Guy, another former Attaboy winner from our show.
Who picked up her game after she was after she won such esteemed award.
Yeah, she got that award when she scored her 1,000th point early in the season. Then she kind of leveled off a little bit with her scoring output. But lately, kind of coming on again. Lucy Fearday has really, as far as scoring goes, has been pretty consistently leading the way for them. Really good athlete. Fun to watch her play. But they just took Neoga out of their game. And I really think that it was defensively as much as anything. Like they weren't shooting well. And I think, Abby Hatton doesn't score a ton of points most of the time, but I really felt like she was disrupting things defensively a little bit in the post, like creating some problems that Neoga's bigs were maybe not used to, hadn't dealt with as much, because Abby's a sophomore, but she's a physical kid, and you can her demeanor on the court is very I think she's, how do I want to put this? I think she can be a good antagonizer sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Like she can get under your skin a little bit.
She can play hockey.
That's what I've seen from her, she really gets after you. So St. Anthony, that was, I think, a statement win for them because, again, they were the lower seed in the conference tournament coming up this week, but they beat Neoga and pretty much had it under control from start to finish.
Now, have they played CHBC yet this year?
They have not. No.
Okay.
So, if they might get their chance.
Who's CHBC's only lost to?
Vandalia. And Vandalia got beat this week by another team. Oh, Diederik beat them 75-64 on Saturday. They had a little shootout over at Altamont this weekend. A lot of the NTC girls teams participated in that. And yeah, Diederik beat Vandalia by 11, 75-64, which that was a good day for the NTC, by the way. I don't have North Clay and Sullivan results yet, but Windsor Stew Straws beat Central A&M. Altamont beat Shelbyville. CHBC beat Tuscola, which Neoga beat Tuscola earlier this year in the championship up at Monticello. So Tuscola is a good team. Diederik beat Vandalia, and Neoga beat Warrensburg-Latham. So really good day for the National Trail Conference at that shootout at Altamont Saturday. But, you look at the NTC Girls Tournament coming up this week. CHBC is the number 1 seed. That opens today, by the way. Neoga's the 2, St. Anthony's the 3, then Altamont and Diedrich at 4 and 5. They'll play the last game today. That'll be a really interesting contest.
I saw their first meeting, and Diedrich was missing one of their better players. That game I call a coin toss, to be honest with you. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, Altamont's obviously between the 2 teams got as far as individual players. I mean, the Nelson girl is a scorer that I don't think I'm insulting the rest of the conference to say nobody else has got a person who can score the way she does. But
Diedrich had a good approach. Diedrich had a real good approach against him the first time.
Yeah.
And
Diedrich's got
Altamont adjust expecting that again. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But I would be surprised if that's not a real good ball game.
Yeah, Diedrich's got some depth to them. You look at who contributes to them scoring wise, at least, and they've got a lot of different kids that this game or that will have solid outcomes. And really, Diedrich at 14 and 8 on the season. It's just nice to see them doing this because Diedrich's had some numbers issues in the past, and it's really taking its toll on the varsity results. They just it's hard to improve as a program when you're not getting to play lower level games. But
and I'll tell you a thing I think that has helped Diedrich. Jason Newkirk, I believe, is also their softball coach. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And you have situations sometimes where softball and basketball don't want to share kids. Oh, look, this in the winter, instead of playing basketball on a team that's not going to be very good, you can be in the cage hitting all winter, doing this and that, which is horrible for kids to.
Yeah.
And I think that may be helping them with their numbers and getting the athletes to play. So who knows?
Yeah, and you're right that Jason does coach both of those programs, and I'm not going to name any names or name any schools, but I have heard about a school, in the area where that's rumored to be the case, where a softball coach said, I don't want my players to go out for basketball. And I don't know that there's a correlation or not, but that basketball program has struggled mightily. And
because I will say this, that usually comes around.
Yeah.
You don't, and that's a bad thing.
You don't want to play those games. I don't think.
No,
First of all, this is high school. So let the kids do whatever they want, especially when, they don't know it. They don't even know what they're good at yet. You gotta let them do whatever they have time to do and let them find out for themselves. Anyway, that's got to be your approach as a high school coach. If it's not, you're doing it wrong. I don't care. You can tell me I've never coached anything, and I'll tell you that that's one thing where I feel comfortable saying I've never coached a high school sport a day in my life, and I can still tell you you're wrong, and you won't change me on that one. So the Ntc Girls Tournament going on this week. That's really all there is. That tournament lasts all week. It's over in Beecher City. Carolyn Winnie, not the coach at CHBC anymore, but I did want to mention that they honored her this past week at their game. 28 years she coached there, took 3 teams to state. She's retiring from teaching after this year. I would say that it's a shame. I think that she doesn't get that she's not doing one last go around with this group. I don't know exactly what all went into that, but I will say that they're 18-1 this year, and it would have been a nice group for her to go out on. I think.
Who's coaching them this year, Whitey?
You asked.
See, I put you on the spot. You're the information. I'm just here for looks.
Somebody different. I will look into that a little bit here.
I'll give you time on that one. All right, let's switch over to the boys.
Yes, let's. I was at 2 St. Anthony games this week on the boys' side, and they won one, they lost one. They went to Neoga and got a 50-44 win. That was it's kind of like the girls' game between those 2 schools in a lot of ways. St. Anthony just got out to a really good start, and Neoga fought back a little bit and made it a 1-point game, I think, at a point in the second quarter, but just could never get out in front. St. Anthony beat them. And then they played Mater Dei Friday night. And that was the interesting thing there, now Mater Dei beat them 56-48, but Craig Croy did play for the first time in a couple of weeks in that game for St. Anthony. His minutes were limited. We didn't actually, when we were getting ready to broadcast it, did not realize that he was available. But before the game started, I pointed out to Greg, I was like, well, he's taking warm-ups. You know, he was in a boot Tuesday night. He's out there warming up with the team tonight. So I think there's a pretty good chance we'll see him. And he did. He came off the bench and scored 6 points, you know. But what I saw that was, I think, got to be good for St. Anthony's mindset is that he seemed to be doing everything he needed to do. Like, as far as, he didn't seem limited in his game in any way. You know, he took a couple of step back shots, made some moves, posted some people up. It just seemed like, you know, he did things that if your foot was bothering you, you might not be able to pull off. And I think that's good for them coming into the tournament next week, that they've got him available. You know, he seems like they'll probably be able to use him like normal unless he has a setback. So that's good for them. St. Anthony, the #1 seed in that tournament.
I thought they might knock Mater Dei off. I know Mater Dei's down just a little bit this year, but that's always a tough game. I mean, yeah. Mater Dei's got plenty of kids.
Yeah, they you know, I think they're athletic. You know, they're always going to be athletic.
Right.
But they came out of the gate and they seemed like they were in a little bit of a hurry. Like they played and St. Anthony's defense will do that to you. You know, I mean, St. Anthony has traditionally had some, we talked about T-Town having length on the perimeter and guarding hard. Well, that's the thing that St. Anthony does too most years. And I think they were causing Mater Dei some problems early on. But then, yeah, you know, Mater Dei's a good team, and they just sort of figured it out as the game wore on. And it was, I don't think St. Anthony they didn't play poorly in that game by any means. It's just sort of a case of running into another pretty good team. And you know, you're challenging yourself with that schedule. So one that'll help them. They play St. Joe Ogden Saturday this week before the Ntc tournament starts. And so that'll be an interesting matchup.
Is that at St. Joe or is that here?
It's home. The
Okay.
Bulldogs. So they've got Flora tomorrow night, and then they've got Windsor Stew Straws Friday night. That's at Windsor. They're playing that game at Windsor, and then they've got a home game with St. Joe Ogden Saturday. So pretty good week for the Bulldogs leading into the conference tournament. That Windsor Stew Straws matchup is going to be interesting in terms of you know, the NTC regular season standings. Windsor Stew has lost a couple of conference games, but also one of those they were missing a bunch of people.
Missing some key players.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I could tell, they might have been missing as many as they were definitely missing 4 guys. I don't know that all 4 guys start, but all 4 guys appear in pretty much every game. So that was they lost to South Central this week, 51-34. And, you know, Windsor Stew Straws is 15-3 on the season. So you see that lopsided score, and the first thing you do is, well, I want to see, you know, who played and who contributed. Right. And really, they had the Vonderheide kid played for them. Samuel Vonderheide played, but both Wittenbergs were gone and a couple of other regular contributors. So I'm not saying, I don't want to take anything away from South Central. Whenever I bring up things like that, it's never to take away from the team that won the game. But
right, you're just providing information.
Yes. So I still think that if Windsor Stew Straws has everyone available, and I don't know what the backstory is on any of that, what's injury, what's illness, no idea. But if they've got their full complement of players, well, then I think a home game with St. Anthony Friday night this week will probably be a pretty good contest, a pretty interesting matchup. As far as the rest of the NTC, I mean, you were at an interesting game Friday night. Altamont and North Clay. Altamont at that point was 2-0 in the NTC, 14-4 on the season, and North Clay was 2-1 in the NTC, but 6-11 on the season. And North Clay won that one. I mean, did they lead wire to wire? It seemed like they must have been ahead pretty much.
they jumped out early. So this is the second time I've seen Altamont, and they got in an early hole. North Clay came out and shot the ball well early, but at the Dietrich Altamont game, it was everybody and their brother hitting a three to start the game. This game, it wasn't. This was, there was a couple threes hit in there, but it was taking the ball to the hole and doing this and that. And it just had a different vibe. I think North Clay may have built a 17-point lead at one time in the first half, 15, 17, and then had some turnovers, and then had a couple missed shots. One of the kids who'd scored a lot early missed a couple shots. They weren't really harder shots. I mean, going to the hole or getting little jumpers inside 10 feet, and they'd roll off the rim. And then Altamont, Noah Klimple got hot for Altamont in the second quarter, and pretty much he brought them back into the game. The Coleman kid was in a little foul trouble, and a couple fouls he got was just, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was a loose ball one time, or a rebound hit the floor, and he kind of turned to go get it, and the Altamont kid was bent over picking it up, and the Coleman kid bumped into him. I mean, it wasn't like a shoved him out, but it was a foul. It wasn't it was an oops, I ran into you foul. He actually picked up two of those. But he was in some foul trouble. And it got down to I think they cut it to one at half. Maybe Altamont or Yoga was up, or North Clay was up one at the half. And then the third quarter started out, and Altamont may have briefly grabbed the lead. And then North Clay kind of went on a run. And then in the third quarter, it was the Logan Fleener show. I mean, he scored, I think he had 12 points in the quarter, something like that, and he was unstoppable. And the thing I liked about him, and I mentioned it on the air, he shoots a jump shot. And when I mean inside of 15 feet, he's rising up, and he's athletic, and he's rising up over people and shooting a shot. And I'm like, it's like the lost art, that pull-up jumper over somebody where you rise up and shoot is almost lost in the game.
I could definitely say
he dominated the third quarter. He built the lead back up, and then Altamont could never recover.
I don't think a defender, would be looking for that a lot of times, like thinking once a guy gets to 18, 15 feet, you're thinking either he's kicking or he's gonna try and take it all the way to the basket, right? Like you don't expect the person to pull up.
And even on his 3-point shot, he rises up as much as anybody around, because it's almost a set shot anymore for people, and I was impressed. I was impressed with that, with North Clay defensively. Again, first time I'd seen them. Matt had told me that it was their first game with all personnel available.
Yeah.
Which explains some things with their record. Now, they did have the Ingram kid was limited. He's still wearing he's got a brace on his ankle still while he plays. And I watched him play baseball, and, he's not near as mobile or quick and things. So I think if he can come back healthy, obviously that only increases them as a team even more. But yeah, and don't get me wrong when I say this, Altamont can flat guard people. Okay, they can come out and guard you, and but I think North Clay defensively was just a tick more aggressive. On the way home, I talked to Justin Fleener because I was bored driving in the fog on the way home from Louisville, and I said, that's the first time I've seen you play, and it's like pecker naps. I mean, you're swatting, get away from me, and they were good.
Yeah,
I was impressed with it.
I think that, and we've touched on this a little bit already, but that's sort of, again, that North Clay is a prime example of like you just don't know what their season has been like. Again, they are. I'm looking now, 7-11 season, but 3-1 in the NTC. But again, they've done two things. They've played a really good schedule. Like you look at who they've played this year, and they've challenged themselves with that, and not won a bunch of those, but still they've done that. And also they as you just mentioned, they have only, they haven't had their whole team together for whatever reason. So
various reasons. Yeah.
So that makes them interesting coming into the NTC tournament. And so we'll segue. We're going to shift gears now. And I'm going to, let me see here. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. What I should have done.
You're going to have to teach me how to do that, because I may want to share my screen next week with a picture or two.
We'll see what we can do. If nothing else, you can always
Attaboy.
send them my way. But these are the NTC brackets. And can you see my pointer here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So St. Anthony got the #1 seed up here. And that's not surprising with Altamont losing Friday night. St. Anthony is the only undefeated team in the conference. So if there was any, I think you could have made a case for either St. Anthony or Altamont had the Indians won their game. But with St. Anthony remaining undefeated in the conference and Altamont taking that loss to North Clay, I think it probably simplified things for voters. Altamont got the 2 though, and they got Neoga. They've got #7 Neoga in their first matchup, and Neoga's got a pretty good overall record. That could be I think an interesting matchup. But then Windsor Stew Straws gets the 3. I don't think that's, I think you could have started having some quibbles about 2, 3, and 4 if you wanted to, but that's how it shook out. Altamont hung on to the 2. Windsor Stew Straws got the 3, and they're going to get a rematch with South Central, right? And I guess we'll see, who plays and how that one shakes out. But then
you're the 3 seed playing the 6, and the 6 just beat you by 15 points.
Yep. And then North Clay Diederich, North Clay is the 4, Diederich's the 5, but we've mentioned that North Clay is sort of just maybe now hitting its stride. I mean, we talked about.
Have they played yet?
Let's see.
I don't remember if they played yet or not.
I'm looking it up. Diederich has played. They played St. Anthony. They've played Neoga. They've played CHBC. They played Windsor Stew Straws, but they have not played North Clay yet. So
okay.
That'll be. I mean, we talked about this before we came on here. That's a nightmare matchup for Diederich. I mean, that's not who you. Not that I think you want to play anyone, but I think that's a tough matchup, because let's say you do win that game. Well, you got to turn around and probably play St. Anthony in the next game, right?
And the thing about Dietrich is a guard-oriented team. Okay. North Clay's got plenty of kids who can guard guards. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the part, and there's some, like I said,
and also, like,
there's a lot of good games, and the Altamont Neoga game, another good ball. I mean, they're again, Windsor and South Central, Brownstown playing CHBC in that first game. Who knows who's going to win it? But I do know beginning of the year, I mean, Brownstown St. Elmo was playing pretty good beginning of the year.
Yeah, they're St. Elmo Brownstown's got they're a 10-7 team, and CHBC 9-10. Their conference results have not been what they want, but I think their team. I mean, St. Elmo Brownstown, for instance, has got a win over Neoga this year. They beat Neoga. Neoga beat Diederich though in their conference game. So there's a lot of interesting things that could happen here. I mean, I don't think St. Anthony's looking at that. I don't think they're looking at that semifinal against potential. I mean, first of all, they're not going to be taking their first game for granted.
Right, if they get there.
I don't think they're looking at that potential semifinal against either North Clay or Diederich and saying, "Boy, I can't wait to play that game." Because
I miss the days of the NTC when Kurt Becker would always send me a message saying, "Mike, remember, St. Anthony is the only team in the NTC tournament who's not lost a first round game."
We need to get
He would send me that all the time.
We need to get Kurt Becker would be a guy to talk to sometime. We might be able to.
Well, he's on my list. It's just a deep list. So yeah, that would have been a good time. We'll have to see. We may just we may have to do 2 guests next week, Whitey. 2 different guests.
If he's in town, he's a guy who's going to be at every one of these games too, probably. So
I may make an appearance. I may have to see if I can get on the media pass list since I am part-time media.
Yeah. I might try to get down there some. I mean, Friday night I won't be able to because T-Town and Effingham girls always play a Friday night game the same week as the NTC, and we won't put that one on the air.
So I'm doing a game somewhere Friday night, it sounds
like. I don't know what the plans are, but probably. I don't know. You might have to fight Millie for it. You guys might.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm okay. I'm just kind of the break glass in case of emergency guy.
Well, I don't know. We won't go that far. I'm not going to say that, but
I may have to go Tuesday night. That could be a pretty nice doubleheader.
Yeah, I think so. I think you look at potential matchups, and there's really no reason to take any. I mean, St. Anthony got all they wanted from Diedrich earlier this year, right? And so, if they played Diedrich in that one, okay, and they played North Clay when North Clay was missing one guy, but I was at that game, and St. Anthony won. But North Clay, hung around, made it interesting down the stretch. And you're not going to take anything for granted there. And the lower half of the bracket.
Well, and, Matt Robinson, I mentioned Friday night, Dietrich's 3 possessions away from beating both Altamont and St. Anthony.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good team that can cause you some headaches. The seedings, I didn't really know how the seedings were going to go, other than I knew St. Anthony would get the 1 after the way things went Friday night. But I don't quibble with any of this. It's
well, I felt like with North Clay beating Altamont, okay, and it was handily, double digits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with that win, I expected North Clay and Altamont to be a 2-3 in some scenario. I really did.
Yeah,
I really did. And I know Windsor Sioux Stars is a good ball club, and I'm not dissing them, but North Clay's got now a conference hang your hat win.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we beat Altamont.
I mean,
that's a big win in the conference.
They're sitting in second place in the conference standings right now.
Yeah.
So that's not the only thing people are taking into account, of course, but it's worth pointing out. But that just goes to show you that I really do think that there's any number of permutations for this NTC bracket to go that I would believe and not be surprised by. So that makes for a fun tournament. We say that about this tournament every year, and sometimes it's just chalk, and but I really do feel like this year you could tell me any number of ways that it'll go, and I'd be like, sure, sounds good to me. I
would not be shocked with any Final Four makeup.
Yep. So there we go. That's the NTC Boys Tournament. That's not this coming week, but that's next week. Starts on Monday, January 24th at Altamont. Great venue. One of the real disappointments of last year, while they got to play basketball, was that the NTC tournament didn't happen. So nice that we're able to have this again. And 86th NTC tournament. That's a long time. I can't remember all those games. Mike, you can remember a few more than I can, but
some I'd like to. There's one I'd like to forget, but yeah, I remember a lot of them. Maybe 1 or 2 I'd like to forget, to be honest. But great atmosphere. Hard to beat the atmosphere, especially you get into that last night.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we got one piece of business left to take care of, Mike. And
our Attaboy.
That is the Attaboy. So why don't we get to it? And I'm going to let you do the talking on this one, because it's a guy that.
This is our first out of the county Attaboy.
Okay.
We've expanded our reach a little bit, but I'll tell you what. Watching the Altamont North Clay game Friday night, doing it with Matt. This young man ended up 28, 29 points, I think, 27, 28, or 29. I just keep the stats. I don't keep the scoring. I'll leave that up to Matt, you know, it's too hard. But North Clay had built a nice lead early. He was a big part of that. Altamont came back, made it a very close ball game. He came out in the third quarter, just dominated the third quarters. I mean, just dominated both ends of the floor. Got a steal or two in there. So this week's Attaboy.
I'm ready.
Oh, I gotta say his name before you give me the this week's Attaboy is going to North Clay's Logan Fleener.
So Logan Fleener, this one right here goes out to you. How was that?
That's good. I will probably get his certificate to his father, and I will need photographic proof that Logan received it and it didn't go to his father's lunch. Because that is possible.
We should be very clear to mention that whatever athletic ability Logan Fleener's been blessed with
comes from his mother.
Comes from his mother.
Yes.
You know, I would say the same thing about my kids. Because I've got none, although I don't know that.
Well, Justin was a good athlete.
Doesn't bode well for.
We kid about that. Yep. Justin was a good, but I did ask him. I said, Justin, did your wife teach him how to jump? He's got some serious hops. He can get up, and but it was just, and he built that lead back up really big. And in the third quarter, it was just like get on my shoulders. He was in double digits that quarter, and it was just. He missed one shot, and that was a 3 at the buzzer from about 35 feet. Other than that, he had a perfect quarter. Boards, got a couple steals, and just really, he took over the ball game at that point.
Keep your eye on him. Keep your eye on him at the NTC in a couple of weeks. I think there's, you know, we've already said it, but really looking forward to that. And you know, I'll give a plug to 97 Premier Broadcasting. You go to 979xfm.com, and that week you'll see they'll have it prominently displayed on the website. But if you can't get over to Altamont, they're going to have video coverage of all the games simulcast with the radio broadcast. And so, you know, it's a lot of fun. Even if you can't make it over there, you can still see what's going on.
The simulcast is great, but you can't feel the Altamont drum line through the simulcast. That drum line at that championship game, it's funny because Kenny Crawford used to say, he goes, that's the only reason I came tonight. You know, I just came to see the drum line. He goes, basketball game second.
I don't know how much I believe that because he was typically playing in the championship.
Hey, if Kenny said it, it has to be true.
Well, you know, I won't argue with that logic. That's all we'll say. I don't know Ken as well as you do, but I don't feel quite as comfortable giving him grief. But I'm pretty sure he enjoyed getting the chance to knock off St. Anthony or whoever else in the championship game. I'm guessing he found that pretty satisfying most of the time.
Well, again, this is our friend Kurt Becker, who then tells me I now hold the record for the largest halftime lead surrendered in an Ntc conference tournament. I think we were up 16 at the half and got beat by 12 or 14. And,
I remember that game.
Yeah, I remember it every night.
Well, better times ahead for all of us. All right, Mike, have a good week.
See you, Dustin. Good job.
Yep, take it easy.